I really feel like this is the only time I'm roughing you up. I believe 2006 was the height of NASCAR. That was like the granddaddy of them all. Like, 2006 was when, we're 400,000 people in the grandstands at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We're 200,000 people at the Daytona 500. Now, one would have thought that NASCAR would have went downhill after the death of our beloved and great Dale Sr., who was so good to me. Just had to add that in there. Senior was good to me. He let me drive his car to get started in NASCAR. What caused the societal downward shift in NASCAR? What caused, now that we look back at it, it's been a long time.
Sure.
What caused that,
Right.
for things to just go bad?
Yeah, I remember it. 2005, 2006. It was the peak of NASCAR as a sport, and hopefully we'll get back to those days again.
We will.
I remember the 2-year wait list on some of the racetracks. I mean, over 100,000 people that would come to a race every single week, no matter where we raced. It was unbelievable. I think there are a handful of things that contributed to kind of the downward slope that we had. I would say probably '07, '08, really until 2018. I would say is where we kind of hit our floor. And then I think we started to see some flattening and some growth in the past couple of years, which is great. But I would attribute it to a couple of different things. One is the financial crisis of '08. Right. If you think about a lot of our fans travel to the racetrack on the weekend. They bring their friends and their family. They would fly sometimes. Some of them would camp in an RV. It's not just the cost of buying the ticket; it's the cost of actually traveling and going to a race. It wasn't inexpensive for a lot of people, back in the day. So I would say that, along with a lot of our fans being true blue collar workers, and Jim, has said this before. If you think about our core fan base, it is and has been and probably will continue to be a lot of our blue collar fans. And I think they were hit particularly hard during the financial crisis of '08. And we started kind of this slow downward decline after that. And we talked about some of these other things. You had a lot of big name drivers that retired year after year. And you saw ratings and viewership, like clear metrics, fan attendance, relevance, everything that we were looking at was continuing to decline. And you could attribute it to a Dale Jr. not being in the car for that weekend, or Jeff Gordon not being in the car for that weekend. So I think that was a part of it. And then I would say the other component is just, and this kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier around the productions, building, and content, is in 2006, our biggest competitors were other sports leagues, right? It was the NFL and the NBA and NHL. And in a lot of ways, they still are all of our competitors today. But our competitors are also just frankly anyone that is making content. People watching YouTube videos, people watching Netflix, people watching videos or pictures on Instagram or X. Content is everywhere today, and we're competing against that for our fans' attention, for people's attention, for potential partners' attention. And it's a completely different world from where we were almost 2 decades ago. So I think there's a handful of things. Those are the three biggest that come to my mind. But it is definitely a bit of a downward kind of spiral that we had for a little bit. And I think ever since 2018 and 2019, and a lot of the changes that we've had in the sport, it's now finally starting to come back and getting a good spot, to what we talked about from a ratings and viewership perspective. So we've got to continue that momentum and somehow get it back to the days that you were talking about, of walking into a Bristol or a Dover or Kansas or Richmond and being sold out, with hundreds of thousands of people, and we're slowly chipping away at it and getting there. So I'm bullish on the future of the sport. Certainly, it's there's a lot of learnings that we've had over the past 20 years or so.